Good morning. Happy Easter. Wait. Too much technology going on. I'm trying to look at too many things all at once. Christ is risen. Look how well we all know that. It all comes back to us even after a pandemic. As we gather into worship, we welcome you all here into the pews. We welcome folks who are joining us on Zoom. We are so grateful to all be here together. We recall every time we gather that when we gather, wherever we gather from, we are meeting on land that was not ours in the beginning. So we remember our indigenous siblings. We commit ourselves to nurturing the land that we are on, wherever we are. As we prepare to sing our invocation, hallelujah. The words are very simple, hallelujah. They're also printed in the bulletin, just in case you need a refresher on those. But as we're getting ready to sing, I want to notice that there's an array of musical instruments and sticks with ribbons on them here. There's some musical instruments here too. Kids or young at heart, anyone is welcome to come grab a musical instrument, a noise maker, to have a little extra fun and chaos in the middle of our Easter service. There are also ribbons on the pews, which you're welcome to pick up. And like Eli and Kate are doing, folks are doing that already. And we'll even make a little game of it during our invocation song and the opening hymn. Why don't you go ahead and make noise or wave them around every time we get the word hallelujah. And folks on, I know, it's making for some Easter chaos, right? And folks who are joining us on Zoom, also feel free to wave whatever you have on hand. I see Linda's taking instruments. Oh, okay, those are going around. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and sing our invocation. Good morning. Good to see you. Welcome. Glad to see you. And our opening hymn is also, it's a familiar tune. Words are a little different. Alternate text by Linda Noonan. Words are printed in the bulletin. We invite you to sing with us, Christ the Lord is risen today. Amen. Oh, good. You didn't even need me to remind you to sit down. I forgot to ask you to stand up. That's how out of practice I am. Our opening sentences are printed in the bulletin, and we invite you to read responsibly. Again, for your noisemakers, anytime we get the word Christ in our opening sentences, go ahead and wave your ribbons, bang your instruments, make some noise. Christ is risen. On the first day of the week, at the first sign of dawn, the women went to the tomb bringing burial spices. A young man sitting at the tomb said, "Do not be afraid. You're looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified." Christ is risen, even though those in power tried to keep him down. While some scheme and profit and poison in the lives of those who love and struggle and sing and work in solidarity, grace comes to us even in the midst of our mixed up lives. Christ is risen, even when those who witness it are written off. Christ is risen and appears to those thought to be outsiders. Amen. I think Linda is actually inviting all the kids up to the stage. I invite Linda up to the stage too.
Oh my goodness, I totally forgot. I was just catching my breath. Oh my goodness. This is a sight for sore eyes. Is there a spot? Oh, thank you, Lucille. Thank you, Adrian. Yes. Oh, wow. Wow. I think we need anybody up here who has ever been a kid on these steps. All right, anybody else? Delia, come on up. All right. Oh, Lord have mercy. Oh my gosh. All right, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Let's look around for a minute, okay? Can you see? All right. I want to have people who are bigger now and don't come up to the steps anymore except for today, raise your hands if you grew up coming onto these steps. Oh my gosh, look at that. So look at you all who are not that big yet. Can you see these folks? Look at them. Can you imagine that they were little squirts up here at one point? Some of them were little babies up here. And some of them learned how to start talking when they were sitting on the steps. And some of them would come up on the steps. There's Sarah. Some of them would come up on the steps before they could really talk, and we would give them the microphone and see if they would go, and we would all start clapping. We were so excited. This is just incredible. What a beautiful thing. I have a question maybe for some of the bigger kids. Some of you have grown up on these steps. Some of you came here every week, almost every week for such a long time. For the bigger kids, is there anything you could tell the younger kids about one way that coming up on the steps has maybe helped you in some way or been something you learned about coming up on the steps in church? Or one way that it was a good thing for you? Yeah.
I'd say it wasn't something I really thought of as like something I learned on the steps or anything, but I'd say when I stopped coming up, I like noticeably felt different. It was like a piece of my life that it always just, because like you said, like every week since I was essentially a baby. So so it was just like a routine in my life that stopped, and I was like, huh, I miss that. I don't know.
I mean, I guess for me, like, coming up and sitting on the steps was, like, the only reason I'd come to church. Like, my mom would say, like, you can go sit on the stage with Linda, and I would be like, okay, let's go to church. Like, and I don't know, they'd give me a microphone and just let me talk, and so, I guess that.
So many. Oh my goodness, I see. Let's just turn around for a minute and look. There's Lyndon in the red and blue stripes, bopping up and down. And there's, hi Juniper, and hi Zinnia. Oh my gosh, it's so nice to see you. Oh, wow. I have a question for Juniper and Zinnia. I wonder how you all are doing, because we were supposed to be together in church last week, but then somebody in your family got COVID. Are you all doing, how are you doing? Can you tell us how everybody is? Did we change the settings so they can unmute? Okay. There we go. Thumbs up or thumbs down? How's everybody doing? Getting there? Okay. And I see Braylon. Hi. It is so good to see you. Well, we are here. Oh my gosh, look at that. We're all on the steps. Isn't that neat? Well, we are hearing from some of our big kids about what they remember about being on the steps. So I'm going to see if any of the big kids have anything else they want to say about what they remember or one way that it was a good thing for you. Can we pass this to Maya, please? Pass it down. Thank you. Maya.
So I remember how, like, no matter how much my mom made me practice what I was going to say when I got to the steps, I would never say the right thing. So, yeah.
So I've heard this before over the last 21 years. I want to know how many people would ever practice. Well, for maybe somebody who's not used to what we do here. We usually ask the kids how they're doing, what they're thinking about, what they're feeling. We're going to jump over that just today because there's so many of us here. But I know that over the years, some kids actually think about that before they get to church. And Maya, you just said you would practice it. Some kids would just go off the cuff, give them a mic, and they're good to go. Some kids would think about, what do I want to say today? Anybody here ever, big or little or in between, anybody ever think before they get to church what they want to say when they get here? Wow, that's fascinating. That's really something. So this matters enough to think about it ahead of time. Any other bigger kids have anything that you want to say about what you remember about the steps?
You would kind of make memories too. You'd say something funny or something maybe a little bit stupid up here, and then people would come up to you about it later, and you would keep talking about it, and it became kind of a laugh, a joke, a memory. Always fun.
So sometimes silly things would happen, right? And they would become kind of jokes, but I'm also thinking maybe sometimes important other things happened, and people asked you about them also later, and that gave you a chance to get to know people out here that you might not know otherwise, right? Because they heard something you shared and wanted to kind of affirm you and support you. Wow. I could stay up here all day. I do want to say that after church, we can actually continue this conversation upstairs. Shh, why? But I have to. Why? 'Cause you, oh, no, you can't. Okay, sorry, we'll share. All right. After church, big or little kids, we're going to go upstairs and have a little bit of time to talk about, I'm leaving. Next Sunday is my last Sunday. And so I want us to have a chance to talk together and see if you have any questions and talk about what that's going to mean and how we feel. And then we're going to have an Easter egg hunt after that. So big and little kids are welcome to... What's that? Your fourth Easter egg hunt. So we'll go upstairs, and anybody who wants to join us, big or little, we're going to talk for just a couple minutes, tiny little minutes, and then we're going to go out in the backyard, because I think Sonia and Sarah maybe hid some eggs for us. So we will continue this conversation, and I'm so glad you're all here. I am so glad that you are all here on Zoom and up here on the steps with us. And big and little kids, thank you so much for being all the amazing people that you are. All right, thank you.
Listen to them help us fly away today. Don't fly away yet. There's still some service to come, though. But we want to start our announcements by noticing how grateful we are to have a band with us this morning. Kyoko has made it all the way from Japan just for Easter. Not just. And she'll be with us for a few more weeks on another visit. We're so grateful to have Lynn Riley and Steve Strawitz and Dan Radice giving us additional music. There are a number of things that are tucked inside your bulletin. An Easter offering if you're feeling particularly grateful this season. A prayer request card if you want to make sure that pastors are praying for you for something particular. You can put that in the offering bowl later. A number of announcements. Hopefully you're not feeling sick or didn't come or are on Zoom. We've got, there's a pledge form for our upcoming pledge drive for building our next fiscal year budget. We'll hear a little bit about that in just in a little bit. Other things printed in the announcements, we want to give thanks to our worship team this morning for Terry Richards on tech, who is making all the magic happen. And also Terry Roberts. And for Rachel Walton, who is at our camera, we give thanks for Care. Care is our usher online, and for those folks who are on Zoom, when we get to the communion part of the service, Care will be leading you in that part of the service. We are grateful for Sandy West, who is our greeter in person, for Heidi Fabian and Jack Vandenberg greeting online. And we've got a lot of helpers for when we get to our communion part. Nevaeh Tice, Palmer Williams, Eli Critch, Maisie Critch, Michelle Williams, and Eli Vandenberg are all going to help out with communion. And thank you to our singers as well. There is a link that's listed in the bulletin, which doesn't do all that much for those of you who are sitting in the pews. At least I can't get this hyperlink to work on my... But we need lots of folks to make church work since we've gone hybrid. So if you can help out being a tech leader, a camera person, greeting people online or in person, being our online usher, we need help with all of that. Linda just invited kids in age and kids in heart to stick around after church, go upstairs and hang out with her, and then do an Easter egg hunt. We're looking for volunteers as well to provide in-person childcare for kids during church until we can hire a Sunday school teacher. People who volunteer will need to go through a criminal background check and child abuse clearance, and the church will cover the cost for those. Priscilla is heading that up. If you are interested and can be part of a rotation, we're trying to make sure that nobody does it more than once a month. You can email Priscilla about that. Speaking of Priscilla, who is flying with her family, except for the child who's still in college in Prague. They're flying as we speak, I believe, home from Prague. But we will be ordaining Priscilla as a United Church of Christ minister right here in the sanctuary on Saturday, April 30th. So we hope that you can be there. We'll need a few helpers to help make that run. And there will be a reception afterwards. If you would like to stay for that reception, please do email Priscilla to let her know. She's hoping to get a relatively accurate count for when she connects with the caterers. Our trustees are sponsoring a church work party on Saturday, May 7th from 9 to 1. It's time for spring cleaning. So if you can come for all or part of that, we would love to see you out here. And we would love to have you get involved if you are looking for ways to get plugged in. We've got all kinds of committees that could use your help. You can check in with Michelle Williams or with Eli Vandenberg. I almost called you Eli Critch. Wrong generation. With Eli the Elder, right? You can check in. They're our church council co-chairs. They would love to get you, love to talk with you about that. That is all the announcements that I have. Are there other? Oh yeah. And card, right. If you'd like to take home mementos from this Easter service today, we've got these flowers can go home with you. Melinda, are you holding up that basket for donations for the flowers? Great. If you'd like to take flowers home with you, we invite you to do that. And there's some suggested donations on the table. We also still have packets of these greeting cards, which are Ed Trey's photographs from our windows here. So these go for $15 a bundle if you'd like to take one of those home or more. We welcome you to do that as well. I think that's all. Is there anyone else? Okay, good. Thank you.
Our first reading is a reflection on the way that the sacred life force, or call it God, or spirit, or love, is present in and around us, in the earth, in our flesh, and in our connections with one another. For me, this short reading is a really beautiful way of thinking about resurrection, that irrepressible force that surely must have been in Jesus, and the ways in which his love and power was available and persist even now to us long after his physical death. This is Rising Up, Springtime Moving Again by Anna Bladel. In places where the ground freezes in winter and thaws in the spring, mud has its own season. Water cannot percolate the frozen depths, so the surface layers of soil become saturated and turn to mud. In Ukraine, there are Russian tanks that have gotten stuck in the mud, unable to advance. A tiny resistance, the earth enacting a blessed refusal. On the verge of the Buddha's enlightenment, he touched the ground and asked the earth to bear witness to his awakening, and it is said that flowers sprang up where his hand touched the dirt. God and world, inseparable, embracing, divinity dispersed through the world, the aliveness of sacred life force incarnating the flesh of the world, dirt, mud, ash, earth, ground, the elemental stuff of creation and creativity. We are of earth and stars and sunlight and spring rain and ocean depths and galactic goodness, getting stuck and springing forth, each nurturing something of precious. I'll start again with there we go. The reading from Luke. But on the first day of the week, at early dawn, they came to the tomb, taking the spices that they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away, but when they went in, they did not find the body. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly 2 men in dazzling clothes stood beside them. The women were terrified and bowed their faces to the ground, but the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, but has risen. Remember how he told you, while he was still in Galilee, that the child of humanity must be handed over to sinners and be crucified, and on the third day rise again." Then the women remembered his words, and returning from the tomb, they told all this to the 11 and all of the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other women with them who told this to the apostles. But these words seemed to the apostles an idle tale, and they did not believe them. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb. Stooping and looking in, he saw the linen cloths by themselves. Then he went home, amazed at what had happened. You could hear the whole room gasp. And then we held our collective breath. Down the length of this long room, a wheelchair came sailing at top speed, reached the end, made a quick and perilous turn, and flew back down to the other side. In it was a woman with the smile the likes of which I'd hardly ever seen, a woman who herself could not see or speak or walk. Her wheelchair was pushed way past the speed limit by one of our children. And standing on top of the wheelchair, with bare feet balanced precariously on the narrow arms, legs straddling the other's upper body, and arms fully extended, looking like Rose in the movie Titanic when she exclaimed, "I'm flying," was one of our dancers. It felt in that moment that Nellie Green and Lisa Lovelace had caught the wind beneath their wings and could sail forever. How many people were in the room on that day? It all began with the church auction. Who knows how many critical moments in history can be traced back to a humble church auction? Like so many of us who, when the auction rolls around each year, wonder what on earth we could possibly have to offer this year that could be of value to someone else. Our deacon then, the Reverend Eleanor Green, or Nellie, as she was fondly called, must have asked herself the same question: what can I give the auction this year? 20 years before that, Nellie had been a student in the program which prepared people to serve as deacons in the Episcopal Church. She had already done graduate and postgraduate work in theology and was now following what she understood deep in her bones to be God's call to ministry. As part of her preparation for ordination, she met a United Methodist pastor and Bible scholar who had been tasked with teaching Bible for that program. At the time, he had just been appointed to a small and dying congregation, and they needed to decide and discern whether the best course of action was to celebrate its past, give it a fitting funeral and close the doors, or see if there might be some seeds of potential new life hiding beneath the soil. That church was this church. That pastor was Hal Tausig, and there were seeds. They were nurtured into life. There was resurrection. And along the way, and as part of its rising from the ashes, was a woman who had persistently and stubbornly refused to quit when the deck was so stacked against her. A woman who, at 18 years of age, was in a near-fatal car accident on her way to her first week of college that should have killed her, but she didn't die. Following a diagnosis of extensive and permanent brain damage, legal blindness, limited mobility, and ultimately the loss of her ability to walk or use anything but one or two fingers to communicate, and no verbal speech, Nellie Green wouldn't quit. She went on to educate herself, live independently, get ordained, break all the rules, and follow God's call to ministry, which led her here to be on our pastoral staff for 21 years. You may notice that we have a habit of keeping people for a long time. So Kip, be forewarned. And you might want to remind Priscilla, too, before that ordination. Everyone said no. Everyone but God and Nellie. And if you asked whether it was advisable for a woman to stand on top of a wheelchair without a net which carried another woman with no ability to control it, pushed by a child at top speed with many sharp edges in the room, everyone would have said no again. Everyone but God and Nellie. And it started with that church auction. Nellie's offering that year was to write a poem for the highest bidder. Lisa Lovelace, a long-time church member and one of our dancers, was the recipient. But Lisa didn't want just any poem about God or nature or the world. Lisa asked if Nellie would write something about her own life and her own experience. And the final product was a poem entitled I Am by Nellie, which began, "What determines being human? Is it thinking? I think, therefore I am. These words pose a dilemma for me because I have extensive brain damage as a result of an automobile accident. Fortunately, my mind wasn't harmed, but what is the mind without the body?" And her poem goes on, "I am woman with partial sight, but whole vision, in my little craft caught in a storm, pitching and weaving on baptismal water, holding fast to my rudder, which appears to be God." Together, Lisa and Nellie choreographed that dance. It was not only dramatic and sometimes terrifying, it was heartbreakingly tender as they wove their legs together to take a few steps, and Lisa sat in the wheelchair and cradled Nellie on her lap. On Easter morning that year, 15 years ago this morning, the headline on the front page of the Philadelphia Inquirer read, "Nellie Green had it all. Then tragedy took away her every dream, but she found her calling, which led her to a personal resurrection." A journalist had been in worship that morning. They saw Lisa and Nellie dance and heard Nellie's poem, and Nellie's story was shared with the world. In another poem by another fierce soul, American poet, feminist, and political activist Muriel Rukeyser, she builds in the poem to this question: what would happen if one woman told the truth about her life? The world would split open. What would happen if one woman told the truth about her life? It's what Nellie did. Told the truth about what it was like to feel trapped in a body over which she had little or no control, the truth about feeling, as she described it, paralyzed in the devil's spider web. And she told the truth about her life in God, being held and guided and not alone. She told the truth, and the world split open. The women who loved Jesus and went to attend to his physical body after he was put to death, they went with tenderness, with love, and with rituals, and with oils, and with spices, and then they told the truth about what they experienced, what they found, the fact that Jesus' body was not in the tomb, and the world split open. But before it did, if we look closely at the story, we notice that they were not believed. A recent post from @Prophetpop captures that biblical account in a tweet. Women: "Yo, Jesus ain't in the grave." Men: "Whatever." Women: "I'm telling you, I was just there. He got up. I literally just talked to him." Men: "Show me." Women: "Come on, let's go look." Men: "Everybody look, I've discovered Jesus is alive." Some things have not changed. How many of us have told our truths and not been believed? How many of us have told our truths, and once other people see what you told them, they take all the credit? Have you experienced this? Maybe you were trying to tell somebody your truth about the way you work, the way you love, your gender, your identity. Maybe something wasn't right in your family and you were trying to tell somebody. Or maybe something in your relationship wasn't working and you tried to communicate it. Maybe you were a woman in a workplace in a world dominated by men, or a person living in a body that this world was not built to accommodate. People who are Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian American, Pacific Islanders, and immigrants have been telling their truth for 400 years. But so many of us who are white have not heard it. Or, once the veil was lifted, finally ran around like Peter and the other guys saying, "Hey, everybody, look, this thing is happening. You won't even believe it." Maybe you're somebody who's tried to tell us that something is broken, that you're not okay, or that we're not paying attention to the right things. And if that's the case in this place, in this church, if I've been like Peter and haven't heard, I want to say I'm sorry. Maybe you're someone who hasn't told your truth yet because you're not sure you'll be believed or that it will be safe to do it. I wonder what it was like for those women in the midst of their unfathomable grief to find that the body of their beloved teacher was gone. And the confusion of learning that now he would be present to them in some kind of whole new way. The world split open, not just for them, but that shattering has reverberated throughout the world for the last 2,000 years. Jesus keeps rising in those who tell their truth and testify to the realities of a beautiful and broken world. Jesus rises in you, no matter how big or little or old or young you are, every time you tell your truth, and also every time the world makes it hard to do it. Jesus rose then and rises still. There have been so many times when people in this community have told their truth, testified, as the saints of the church would call it, and our world together here has split open like it did when Nellie and Lisa came sailing across this room. I'll never forget Maya Rector standing in the pulpit right down there. We met together, Maya and I, once a week for about a month or so. Maya would talk, and I would record and then transcribe everything she said, and then send her the text. She had agreed to preach for our church. But writing a sermon is tough. I know we make it look really easy, but it's tough, even for seasoned clergy. And she was a 17-year-old high school senior, struggling to keep up with her schoolwork and apply to colleges. So we cooked up a plan where she could tell me about the things that mattered to her, and then I would I would send her her words, and she could organize them later. Maya, you taught me something about what it can mean to create and hold space for someone's story. Your sermon, Maya's sermon, how many people were here on that day? Yeah? Yes. Mom, I know you were here. That's right. Maya's sermon is one of the highlights of my time in this community. She talked about her journey to say yes to herself, and I checked this with her. She talked about her journey to say yes to herself in a world that so often denied or rejected her. She talked about being Black and about being lesbian, about living with bipolar depression, and about what it was like to be in deep despair. She also talked about her commitments to justice and her resolve to learning to speak her truth. She testified to the powerful role of this church in her life, sitting on the steps like all the other little kids. I believe that God says yes to us, she preached. We should do the same. Let me run that by you just one more time. Maya said, I believe that God says yes to us. We should do the same. One woman, one young brave woman told the truth about her life, and our world split open. Maya, Nellie, countless children, you saw just a tiny fraction of them over the years that have sat on those steps and gave us this truth straight and unfiltered. They've asked questions that matter to them. They've told us what they need us to know. Our time with children is not a parade of cuteness. It's not a performative demonstration of how cool we are here. It's a time when we support and bear witness to our children learning to come to speech and speak their truth. And just as importantly, it's an opportunity for those of us who are grown-ups to practice every single week, listening and believing someone else's truth, even when their truth challenges us or interrupts us. I remember when Alden Coe-Doyle interrupted me, smack dab in the middle of a sermon I worked hard to prepare and deliver. Thank you very much. You were probably 5 or 6 years old. In the United Church of Christ, we say, God is still speaking. Well, God spoke that morning in the middle of my sermon in the voice of a 5-year-old who was open enough to spirit engaged completely in a sermon that should have bored the daylights out of him, and trusting enough in this space and these people to use his voice and ask a question. I don't know if that sermon needed a course correction, as so many of my sermons have, or if you were calling BS, or if we just needed to go deeper. I don't remember. I just remember that you put it out there, and we had a conversation. And that's what it means when we say God is still speaking, and Jesus keeps on rising. This place is nothing if not a resurrection community, a church that has witnessed and experienced rising, a ragtag group of people who stand on the shoulders of a few folks. Just imagine this. A few folks 175 years ago who had an idea that maybe a couple of us could get together and support each other on our spiritual journey and talk together and learn about the Bible together and pray together. 175 years ago, some people in this place said, I wonder if we should think about getting together and doing that. And 175 years later, and hundreds of people we stand on the shoulders of who made this space possible, made our life possible, made our resources possible, gave their life and their love and their prayers so that we could be here today. This church has been a place where Alden could interrupt and Maya could preach and Nellie could soar. This church has known what Anna Bladel describes as getting stuck and springing forth, nurturing something of precious aliveness and companioning each other into vibrancy. That's, for me, resurrection, when one person tells the truth about their life and the world splits open. When we get stuck and spring forth again, that's what it means to be people of faith. When we're interrupted, God is still speaking. And when we allow ourselves to be pushed, to carry, to sail, to fly without a net into the unknown, we're companioning each other into vibrancy. And over and over and over again, as it has for 2,000 years and 175 years, something rises. This is God's good news. Amen.
We're going to invite a response through giving our gifts and our offerings. I think we've got ushers who will take that, but as they come, as they come, Becca is going to give us a word about our upcoming pledge campaign, which will help us make a budget for the next year.
Good morning. My name is Rebecca Bloomquist. My husband Keith and I are the current financial secretaries. We've been coming to this church for about 10 years, ever since little Eli, was a baby. So this is a very, very special place to us. This happens to be my favorite holiday here. It's a very unique place, too. Just from walking into this sanctuary and facing one another, especially during prayer time, and really knowing each other very well and being in prayer with one another, I couldn't find any other community like this. So this year, our stewardship committee is very small but mighty, and we've taken on the task of trying to get everyone to give us some pledges. That gives us a better idea of how we can form our budget. We are fully self-funded, so we really rely on the budget so that we can plan for our fiscal year, which happens to go from July to June. So our small but mighty committee is going to be calling upon you to think outside the box a little bit this year, find a way to communicate how you belong to this church, how you feel the church moving in your life through song, words of poetry, letters. Not everybody feels comfortable standing up front of everybody. I could do a song and dance. But we are looking for a unique way of how we can share with one another what this wonderful community has to offer and what it means to each one of us. So if you could fill out the pledge form. You could always give it to our church secretary. Her name is Karen. Our email address is on the back of the bulletin. We're financial secretary at chestnuthillunited.org. We look forward to getting as many pledges as we can get. Thank you.
Thank you. And our ushers were very efficient, but our band has offering music prepared, so we will receive this as offering. Amen. Amen. Nobody ever said Lionel Richie wasn't right for church. little known fact about All Night Long. It actually dates back to the very first Easter. The women wrote it while the men were taking credit for seeing Jesus. Our offertory response, the words are printed in the bulletin. I invite you to find those, and we'll sing together, Praise God from whom all blessings flow. You may be seated again. For prayers this morning, we're going to just enter you into a time of guided silences where I will name some prayers for us and invite you to make space in your own hearts and spirits for those. But I will invite us first to, still looking in the bulletin or on the screen, we've got our sung prayer response, Take, O Take Me As I Am. And I wonder if we can sing through that a couple of times together. So we know today that we're holding all sorts of things with us as we are gathered in this room, as we are watching the world around us, as we gather on Zoom. I will invite us to hold all of these things as we bring ourselves to God in prayer. Oh God, for all of those who woke up this morning with joy in their bones and energy in their bodies, with joy that spills over, oh God, may we feel a sense of that which they share. Oh God, for those who come into an Easter service with stories of an empty tomb, who are feeling the heaviness of death and of grief in their lives, may they find a sense of that resurrection hope. May they find a sense that their grief is real and that there is a place for it at the table as well. Oh God, hold them in your care. Oh God, for those who live in the terror of war, for those for whom this holy day feels like the end of the world, for those who are in fear, for those who are aggressors. Oh God, we speak words of peace, we speak words of justice. Oh Spirit, move in this world. Oh God, for when we feel lonely, when we feel bereft, for those times when it feels like our struggles are simply our own and we forget that there are those who would carry them with us. Oh God, remind us of your presence. Oh God, for the song that fills this place, that spills from our lives and spills from our lips, for the rhythm that comes through these instruments, for the joy that abounds. Oh God, may it fill us. Oh God, for this world that feels on the brink of breaking so often, that needs a word of resurrection, that needs a word of encouragement. Oh Spirit, fill us up. So notice all of the things that are in your hearts, in your minds. Notice those things that you are carrying with you this morning, the things that feel light and the things that feel heavy. Know that they're all here and they're all held in the deep and the wide love of God. Let's sing together again twice our sung prayer response. Yes. And invite all of those who are going to help with our communion serving to come find your places around the table.
As we celebrate the ways in which Jesus rises in and among us, we gather at this table to do that thing that he did so often and so powerfully in his time. We gather at this table to eat, or at least a semblance of COVID adaption eating, to bless and break bread as he did, and to notice the beauty and the brokenness in our lives and in our world, and to notice the ways in which God is present in this bread and this cup in your life and in our world. As we remember the risen one, we raise up our own lives to that light. And at this time, I would invite our servers to raise up the bread. We remember that when Jesus was at a table like we are, together with others, he took bread and he gave thanks and he said, when you do this, when you eat bread together, when you gather and share your lives together, do this and remember me. Thank you, Maisie and Palmer.
And we invite you to raise the cup. And in the same way, Jesus took the cup, and giving thanks, he said, this cup is a promise that I will always be with you. When you drink from this cup, remember me. You can lower the cup. Come, Holy One, interrupt us, comfort us, heal us, ignite us. All honor and glory is yours, Almighty God, now and forever. Amen. At this time, I would invite you to join us in the prayer Jesus taught, found in your bulletin and on the slide. Our Father and Mother and Parent,
who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom,
and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
When we break this bread, is it not a sharing in the one body of Christ?
And when we share this cup, is it not a sharing in the life of Christ? At this point, we are going to invite folks who are in the room to receive communion here. Our communion stations are on the sides of the table. Anyone is welcome to receive communion. Notice we're still in a pandemic, which makes communion a little bit funky. We're not breaking off bread like we often do. The leftover stuff in the basket, so you don't have to tuck the empty cup into your pocket. Those who are on Zoom, Care is going to lead you through your own communion ritual. And there is also, at the ends of the table, if you want to take communion and then be anointed, we've got some oil here that we can offer a blessing for you. You can just let us know if you'd like it on your palm or on your forehead. We're happy to anoint you and give you a word of blessing there. You don't have to take communion first. You can do it in either order, or you can choose to do one or both things. Those of you on Zoom, Care will also offer some instructions for you to do your own anointing if you would like to do that. And then as you come up, or whether or not you're doing communion and or anointing, we've got some chocolate here that's on the table. We can't do Easter without chocolate on the table. There are also some eggs, which are hard-boiled by Linda, so they're not raw, so you won't resurrect them after to make them an Easter surprise. We invite you, as you're seated, to just find someone in the room and hold them in your own consciousness. Offer a word of prayer and blessing for them throughout this time. And now we open this space, and Care will open the Zoom space, the Feast of God for the people of God.
Friends on Zoom, can you give me a little wave or a thumbs up if you can hear me? Fantastic.
Good. Let it happen.
So friends, I invite you to gather your bread and your drink or whatever it is you're using for communion today. And as we know, we've already blessed these gifts. And so I invite you now to take your bread, to take your cup. Friends, the bread of life and the cup of blessing. Eat, drink, and be nourished. Will you pray with me, friends? God, we thank you for these gifts of bread and cup, and for all the ways that you nourish us. Keep feeding us, God, strengthening us, providing what each person here needs in heart, mind, body, and spirit. In the name of the resurrected Christ, we pray. Amen. Friends, take a moment now to look around this Zoom room at the faces and the names of this community, of the people in this community. Really see each other. Take a moment to be together in this moment, in this place. And I invite you right now to breathe, to really breathe, and to know that as we breathe, God breathes in us. For those of you that would like to we'll take a moment now to anoint ourselves. This can be a way to remind ourselves of our own belovedness, of how deeply loved we are by our God. You're welcome to use oil or lotion, or to simply place your hands on yourself in blessing. And if you're with somebody else in the same physical room, you can also anoint each other if you want to. So if you have oil or lotion or something you want to use for anointing, I invite you to place a small amount of it on your forehead or your hand or another place on your body as you feel led. And take a moment there to feel your touch, to feel and smell and sense the oil on your hand or on your skin. And as you anoint yourself, may you know that you are holy, you are sacred, you are God's beloved. Will you pray with me again, friends? God, in this anointing, let us feel your spirit, your blessing, your presence. Let us know without a doubt that we are your beloveds with whom you are well pleased. Amen. And so, friends, I invite you now to, if you have chocolate, I invite you to eat some chocolate if you feel so led, and to take some time now to enjoy the music. We're going to unmute in a moment so you can hear it again, to pray, to dance, to eat chocolate, to be in community. Blessings on you on this Easter Sunday. Amen. The music should be returning momentarily.
We are at our closing hymn, which is which is a bit of a tradition here. As our singing group is making their way up front, notice a lot of you have heard this and been around for a number of times we've done this, so feel free to sing along with us if you like, or use your ribbons or your instruments to help with the rhythm. Well, go with the hallelujah. Go with some rhythm, go with some dancing, go with all of the stuff you've been holding with you this morning, whatever that is. Know that we're going into a world that is the same, but that is also new on this day of resurrection. Go in peace. Amen.